What's up everyone, this is Fos-kun, and today we're gonna be reviewing the Ultraman Trigger, the series. And please excuse my voice, I have a lot of stuff happen and my voice is really not what it used to be, but long story short, Trigger has come to an end, it's time to review it, I'll give my honest opinion, what I think about it. Now let's just get into this. Now, generally speaking, the plot of Ultraman Trigger is pretty much a redefined Ultraman Tiga plot. Basically, if you were to take the 52 episodes of Ultraman Tiga, the movie, the Final Odyssey, of course, the Gaiden, some aspects of Ultraman Dyna, some aspects of Ultraman Gaia, you're gonna get an Ultraman Trigger series. Now, cramming all of this into the 25 episodes really was something I was really worried about, and yeah, in some aspects the plot does hold up. I mean, of course, we have the three main giants here, the dark giants Mera, Dargon, and Hudrum, up against Ultraman Trigger. Now, of course, the plot isn't 100% the same as Tiga. Some parts have been adjusted to suit its new generation line, and of course, some originality in the series, some cameos, some of those are really good towards the plot of Ultraman Trigger. And the plot is basically your standard stuff, light versus dark, light coexisting with dark, you know, the works. And obviously, saying the plot is 100% good really isn't something I should really say about. I'll keep that with the negatives aspect. Well, let's just say the plot of Ultraman Trigger is, well, basically serviceable if you're in a rush job. Let's just continue with the list. Now, character-wise for Ultraman Trigger really isn't that much to talk about. I mean, you have your standard MC. Now, standard really isn't something I should really say because Kengo is a pretty good MC in some aspects. Now, seriously, with Kengo Manaka, you're really gonna have to tolerate the amount of smiles he's saying. I wonder if Kenji can put the amount of smiles he says in the series. Well, please don't.
Smile, 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 smile. 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 Smile, smile.
Bruh. Speaking of, MCs, our main character really isn't the most smartest. Now, why I say this is because there are some moments where Kengo really is a happy-go-lucky, stupid moment idiot time, and that's not something I really want to say because, truthfully speaking, I get the direction they're trying to go with the MC. Give him more character as opposed to Daigo, which is, we barely even know Daigo's background other than he's the reincarnation of the ancient Tiga. With Kengo, they did try to flesh out his character more. And I should really stop talking about Kengo because I should really talk about the other characters. Now, the most fun character I had experience with throughout the series are Akito and Ignis. Now, Akito is your standard secondary best bro. He basically does everything for Kengo. He builds the gut spark lens, he makes the hyper keys, he figures out everything for the team. Basically, Akito is the most useful character throughout the series. That's not to say that Yuzare aka Yuna is useless. I'm just saying Akito is more involved. Especially in episode 23, that was really heartwarming despite maybe some aspects not really making sense. And of course, Ignis. Now, Ignis being my favorite character, not because he's just the edgy Ultraman Trigger Dark, it's because he's a tragic character. I mean, he lost his whole family. Sure, he had some dumb moments, but overall, Ignis is a really good character. I might say that I preferred watching the whole series worth of Ignis compared to Kengo, and that's saying a lot. Now, the designs in Trigger, I really cannot say they're bad. I mean, towards the new generation line, especially after the Heisei series, the designs in the Ultraman series has really gone very top quality. I mean, as you can see with Golba, it's really good. A fusion of Golza and Melba, even though it's basically a Diet 5 King, a Diet Tri King if I were to say. And design-wise, with the Ultraman suits, they're nice. I mean, Trigger is basically a Ultraman Tiga RX. You know, what if Tiga was made in the new generation line? That's basically what Trigger is. And for the designs like Dargon, it's basically a much more better version of Daram. I pretty much like Dargon better compared to Daram. That also goes with Carmilla. Now, Carmilla basically is the much more slimmer, much more proportionate version of Carmera. Now, Carmera, the issue I had with her is because she looks too thick and her boobs are way too far apart. So, yeah, Carmilla actually does much things better. And the Guts Falcon, well, I'll talk about that in the negative aspects later, but I just had to say, the Guts Falcon is okay. I mean, it's a reference to Macross, but I get the idea. Nash, they say, we'll save that for the negatives. The God Spark Lens. At first, I didn't like the idea of a God Spark Lens, but seeing it in action throughout the series, it's okay. It's serviceable. It's a weapon. It can be a weapon. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. I like it. I love it. I really want one. I wish I had one. That's not to say the vanilla Spark Lens wasn't good, but you know, it's a defensive weapon. I would take that any time. And yeah, the designs, other than like Glitter Trigger Eternity, 3 color timers, Mitsubishi logo, funny. At first, I didn't like it, but then it grew on me, and yeah, I guess I kinda like it. Trigger Dark, first I liked it. I really did like Trigger Dark as the first design, but the more I look at him from different angles, the more I find he's a bit too clustery, too like, not saying mainstream, more like too bulky, if that makes sense. Like, it's not like a warrior, more like a tank. Now, Strong type, I'll save that. I'll just say that it's good. Sky type, my favorite form. I love Sky type. I like blue. As you can see, I like the blue forms. And the weapons, Circle Arms, forgettable. Glitter Blade, pretty okay, but still forgettable. I don't really remember the weapons that much, but except for Circle Arms Arrow mode. That's pretty cool. Now, for the plot of Ultraman Trigger itself, I have to agree on some people saying it was rushed, it was fast, it doesn't make any sense in the long run. But I'm not gonna blame the director, I'm not gonna blame the series itself. I mean, the series does have some good plot points, just some of the execution is really bad. Now, I should explain what plot points that I disliked during the Ultraman Trigger series, and I will explain why it was like that in my theory. Now, the plot that I didn't like during Trigger was that some parts really didn't feel like they were needed to be added. For example, I'll give you an idea here. Remember that time when Kengo pressed the button when Ignis fought Hoodrum? Yeah, that was not supposed to happen. I feel like that was not supposed to happen. I mean, they really just showed Kengo being a fucking dumbass for pressing a button. I mean, this is the guy that is going to protect all of us, and he's this stupid. I don't think it's a good idea. And the most obvious one is episode 19. Yes, I'm talking about the Killer episode. Now, yes, I did gush a lot about how it was nice to see Tiga back fighting Killeroid with Trigger there. But let's be honest, that one was a bit last minute inclusion if you really dig into it. I mean, the end of the episode, the last few minutes left, that was Tiga fan service. That was the only Tiga fan service, if I remember correctly. Now, listen, I usually don't like to complain about fan service. In fact, I don't like to complain about returning characters. Reboot making a cameo? Cool. That was pretty cool. But the fact that they just like shoehorn Tiga into it, it doesn't feel that much more organic, if I were to say. Like, they had to include Tiga just because the name of the series had Tiga in it. I don't like to complain about this, but this is something we need to address. Some of the freaking plot doesn't really make sense, and if they do make sense, they were like speedrunning shoehorned in. Now, this is not to say I hate the plot. Listen, there's a reason for this. Now, in my humble theory, I think that the reason why the plot was rushed this much was because, well, Trigger was filmed after Ultraman Z finished airing. And during that time, if you remember correctly, there was a COVID Delta variant, which was the most dangerous variant of COVID we had. And would you know, according to the rumors that I found on Reddit, I'll share a screenshot right now. Kenji, please add it. 80% of the script for Ultraman Trigger was changed or altered. So really, it's hard to see what parts were altered and what parts weren't. Also, I was also told, and it's not really confirmed, again, screenshot at the screen. Apparently, Sakamoto, the director of Trigger, didn't have much freedom to direct Trigger as he wanted. And this is something not really that uncommon. I mean, studio meddling does happen. I mean, look what we had. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 had studio meddling. It wasn't as memorable as always, but the same thing could have happened to Trigger. So really, any plot points, anything that didn't make sense, it probably was studio meddling. Now, I don't really know if it's 100% confirmed, but I would like to see what would happen if Sakamoto had the 100% freedom to do Trigger, as much as the director of Ultraman Z had much freedom. And of course, comparing Z to Trigger in terms of plot really doesn't seem fair. So, just like I said in the positives, the plot of Trigger does make sense when it does make sense. And the negative part, really fast pacing and some plot points doesn't make any sense. That's the only negative part. And this has spent like 4 minutes only talking about plot. Let's continue with the characters. Now let's talk about the characters that are really bad in terms of writing. Well, saying bad really isn't a good idea. I'll just say what could have been. Kengo. I know what they were trying to do, making Kengo the lovable character that we love, similar to what Toei did with Kamen Rider Force Ace Gentaro. But honestly, it kinda ends up being cringy. Now sure, I can understand why Kengo does this. I mean, he gets much more serious towards the end, but really, there doesn't seem to be much character development, and if there was character development, I kind of forgot about it. Kengo is the most happiest Ultraman MC I've ever seen. And that's not to say I don't like to see happy main characters in Ultraman. No, I really do want that. But Kengo does end up being a bit cringy at times. Look, I'm not saying I hate Kengo. I'm just saying there are some things that I wish could have been much more better. Maybe make Kengo mature. Maybe make them, like, really just like develop. Which also goes with Yuna. Look, Yuna stance. Do not attack me. I'm trying to be rational here, okay? There's less character development for her and less involvement from her. Towards the end of Trigger, she gets involved a lot more, and that's because she's already awakened. Yuzare, my argument is a bit invalid right now. Let's talk about other characters. The strong guy, I forgot what he did. Yanase, I forgot what she did as well. Marulu, she's your typical alien buddy, just like Pega, but not as strong as Pega, so yeah, Pega's better. The captain, just like the original captain in Ultraman, Trigger is really... How can I say this? I mean, the captain role is pretty much the same. Tiga, Trigger, they both know that the main character is an Ultraman. Yeah, that's the idea. Shizuma, Shizuma, let's just be honest. Shizuma is only important when it involves the Ultraman itself. If there's Tiga, he's right behind you. And other returning characters, let's just say Reboot. Yeah, it's nice to see, him in human form. It's okay. Just we could have done more. We could have done more with it, maybe. Also, look, the Dark Giants are the main problem I have. Listen, you gave Chimera a human form, of course, for the Sumire fan service. Where's Dargon and Hudrum's human form? Look, I'm not one to complain about this, but if the final Odyssey of Ultraman Tiga had human forms for Hudora and also Daram, why couldn't you do the same for Dargon and Hudram?
Too horny! Horny!
I guess horny is always stronger than anything, I guess. I don't know. Stronger than pain! Stronger than pain, dayo!
Tsuburaya, you could have done something good with the Dark Giants. It should treat them as like plot points. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying you could have done more. Finally, let's talk about the designs in Ultraman Trigger. The bad side. Guts Falcon. I really don't like the Guts Falcon that much. Look, I'm all for transforming mechas and even robotic stuff for the attack teams. I mean, it worked with storage. It's pretty cool. But it's a jet that turns into a robot. What could go wrong? Well, the robot mode does look good. The jet mode really is something I don't really particularly like. I mean, I prefer the Guts Wing over the Guts Falcon. Also, Nash de Seigo, look, in Nars form, it does look great. It's a big dragon.
That's quite big. Impressive.
I don't like it as much in ship mode. I mean, what is this amalgamation of parts? I mean, the first time I saw it was like, yeah, that's the head of Nars. How does this thing transform? And when it does transform, it just like, oh, parts forming. I get it now. Haha. Also, the uniforms in the Guts team, well, not to say the worst, but it could have been better. And the Guts, look, I don't have any problem with the Guts spark lens, but I wish it had some automatic opening mechanism if that was something really good. I mean, the original spark lens had an automatic opening mechanism, and I really wish there was an automatic opening mechanism, like an alternate button maybe. Look, I'm just saying. And of course, let's talk about the circle arms in claw mode. That does not look like a claw mode to me. Does this look like a claw to you? It doesn't look like a claw to me. Look, I'm okay with the sword mode. I'm okay with the arrow mode. I'm not okay with claw mode. In fact, I don't think claw mode was supposed to look like this. I mean, there are some concept arts for claw mode, and that actually looks better. The claw mode that we got, I get it, it's rotating, but you don't have to put claw mode. I don't know if anyone loves claw mode, and in fact, I'm not gonna call this claw mode, I'm gonna call this circle arm scissors mode, because that's exactly what it does. And of course, let's talk about the main issue I have with the Dark Giants. Now, you may have noticed I have already praised Carmilla and Osargon with their designs. I don't like Hugh Drum design, seriously, and no, look, Hugh Drum fans, I'm sorry, I just don't like Hugh Drum's design. It's too weird, it seems too bulky in my opinion, it's too white, it's asymmetrical for some reason. I like the idea of the blade, don't get me wrong, it does remind me of the Gundam Exia GN sword. What's with that shoulder pad? What's the purpose of the shoulder pad? Please tell me why does that exist? So yeah, some designs are hits, some designs are miss, but mostly I just have a lot of issues with Hugh Drum's shoulder pad. Yes, I am this kind of person, please feel free to debate in the comments. So yeah, that was my end review for Ultraman Trigger New Generation Tiga, the series. Now, what's the conclusion? Well, let me try to break down what was the conclusion for every single thing. The positives, the plot is followable, the designs are great, and of course the characters, some of them are tolerable. Yet, the negatives is that our main character sometimes can be a freaking dumbass, the designs sometimes don't make sense, I'm looking at you Guts Falcon, I'm sorry. And of course, some plot points really don't make any sense. I mean, seriously, Tiga last minute shoehorn. I love the fact that we saw Tiga, but I just don't. It could have been a 2-part episode for all I cared. It could have been 2-part episodes. I really wish it was. And don't tell me that technically it was. It wasn't. It does not count. Also, you may have noticed I also forgot to mention the cameo of Ultraman Z in Ultraman Trigger, and that's because I actually really did forget Z had a cameo in it. Well, let's see, it's a new generation Tiga, it's not supposed to be 100% with Tiga, and people who watch Trigger are basically in it for the nostalgia. And I was one like that too, but after the series end, I came to realize that, well, during the series was closing end, I came to realize, well, maybe I should not see this as a Tiga fan, maybe I should see this as a new generation viewer. And as a new generation viewer, yeah, some of it does really weird me out, but in all, it does really make a good time to watch, I guess. I mean, I haven't watched that many on new Ultraman series. I mean, I skipped Rube and Taiga. I'm sorry for anyone who loves that series. After Ultraman Z, we did came to expect a lot more sci-fi, storytelling, character development. I mean, how can you even compete with a series like Ultraman Z, which is basically perfect and won a Seiyun award? It's near nigh impossible. And Trigger did try its best. Look, I'm not saying Trigger is the worst series, but if you're gonna try to climb up what Ultraman Z did, you're gonna have a hard time. And that's saying a lot. So, in the end, what's my rating? Well, if I gave Tiga the 6.9 rating out of 10, well, I should give Trigger at least a 6.8 or 6.6 out of 10. Yes, it tried so hard to do what its predecessor from 25 years ago tried to do, but all in all, it did fail in a lot of aspects. Now, I'm not the only one who says this. A lot of people kind of agree that Trigger did try too hard and basically failed. And honestly, I can't blame the director. You're gonna have to cram like 55 episodes of Ultraman Tiga lore, plus the movie, plus the Gaiden, plus Dyna and Gaia, and some aspects of Showa era. It's really hard, so I can understand that. And making it originally a fusion, not a fusion form, like form change, type change, is really hard. So yeah, a 6.7 I guess, a 6.7 out of 10 really isn't that bad. I mean, I gave Tiga a 6.9, it has to be something. And if I could retract my original review for Tiga, I would not give it a 6.9. If I were to retract my original review of Ultraman Tiga, I would have gave it a 7.2 compared to Trigger, maybe a 7. a 6.7. But all in all, the review is done. This is all I can give. I'm sorry if I've offended some people with my review. This is my honest opinion. And if you don't agree with me or agree with me, feel free to debate in the comments what you like, what you don't like about Ultraman Trigger. Keep it, keep it civil. Keep it, polite. And in the end, do I recommend Ultraman Trigger? Well, you might have to prepare mentally before that. Well, that's it. I have done my review of Ultraman Trigger the series. I wonder what we can do now. I really hope Ultraman Decker will be a good series just like Dyna. Well, that being said, I am Fos-kun and I will see you in another video. Take care everyone.
あら、最後まで見るだなんて。よほど私たちのことが好きなんですね。いいんですよ。素直になって。なら当然、チャンネル登録もしてくれますよね。ここを押してくれないと、お仕置きですよ。